The Global Energy Transition and Electrification Summit and the London Climate Action Week are taking place in what is probably the hottest June day in the hottest week in recorded UK history. It's also taking place during what is the largest energy crisis in history. That is ironic, but is also deadly serious. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies, gentlemen, partners, and friends, welcome. The energy system does not need a new chapter. It needs a whole new book. And you, the 500 leaders from government, from industry, from NGOs, are writing that book. Renewable electricity is now recognized as the solution to both the climate and fossil fuel crisis. I am now convinced that we will look back at 2026 as being the turning point, the beginning of the end of the fossil fuel era. My name is Bruce Douglas. I'm the CEO of the Global Renewables Alliance, co-organizer of this event, along with the UK government, E3G, and We Mean Business Coalition. We have 25 amazing speakers in an hour and a half, so let's get going. And the first speaker is the visionary and driving force behind the London Climate Action Week. What began as an ambitious idea 8 years ago, I believe, has become one of the most important gatherings in the global climate and energy calendar. I understand there's over 1,000 events taking place in London this week. Huge thanks to him for his vision, his support, and bringing all of us together here today. Please welcome on stage the CEO of E3G, Nick Mabey. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Bruce, and thanks to all the partners who helped put this on. And yes, welcome to London Climate Action Week. A bit more climate than we were expecting, but that's given everybody really good talking points to every event. And actually, it's not 1,000 events. We're over 1,300 events this year, which is double last year's. So it's an amazing effort by everybody in this room and beyond. Yeah. But I think this is probably one of the most important events of the week, because it touches on the biggest lever we have to deliver our security and to move the climate on. Of course, we didn't, as partners, we decided to do this event. We were not expecting a heat wave. We really weren't expecting yet another energy crisis. And I think and as Fatih Birol said in this first part of this meeting, it's not the prices have come down, it's that uncertainty is now permanent. And everybody is going to be changing their risk analysis in every country and every business to move forward in this area. And this morning in the same room, we had an event we run called the State of Climate Politics, where we had ministers talking about how they were changing their views of relationships, of partnerships, of industrial approaches to the new geopolitical context and to the new energy context. So it really feels like these are two halves of the same coin, but they're coming together around one solution: stop using volatile fossil fuels, start using good clean energy, and electrify as fast as you can. And we've just come out of a really intensive communication and discussion upstairs in an even hotter room between ministers, CEOs, heads of international institutions, of which we have an amazing gathering here today. And you're going to hear, I think you're hearing from every country pretty much at ministerial level at LCAW this year. We have around 30, and you're nearly getting every single viewpoint we can gather. But the main aim of the conversation, what I hope to hear from people here, is what are the priority steps we need to take? Concrete, moving forward, fine, we've got the agenda, let's move it forward. And I think it really works to look back at the polling that was released last week, and also similar polling at the beginning of this week, on what business says. And it lays down a bit of a challenge. One, it's, yes, 92% say electrification is how we get stability and security for energy. 79% says geopolitics make moving off fossil fuels more urgent, so that's good. But 72% say that governments aren't doing enough to accelerate electrification. And between those numbers lies the challenge we're discussing today, and hope to come out of this with real momentum moving forward. And it is about grids, and it is about policy, it is about moving demand, and it is especially about finance. And we're in the finance capital, green finance capital of the world here, that is not investing enough in this project. And that's something in London we need to sort out, why we are seeing these investments as too risky and not profitable enough, because we aren't doing our share of this project, given the amount of capital which is moved through and stored in this space. So with the destinations of COP31 and the Turkey presidency's announcement that they want to move forward the electrification target, with the Santa Marta Conference and the transitioning away from fossil fuels as a process, we have the processes forward, we have the ingredients here. The task now is to sow a roadmap between the 2 points so that we do our work now, and by the time we get to COP and the next stages, we can actually show demonstrable acceleration and progress. I'm so proud of the community that's come together here. I'm so proud that we can host you in London, and London help be part of that thing. Climate action is not just for COP. Remember that. And there's a lot of other climate action weeks. So thank you again. That's your introduction. And I'm going to pass over to Ed Miliband, Secretary of State for DESNZ, for his opening remarks.
Sorry. So some challenges, huge opportunity. I will ask the next speakers, please do speak closer to the microphone. That would be appreciated. The next speaker has shown incredible leadership on energy transition in the UK. The country that started the Industrial Revolution with coal now has no coal power and gets over half its electricity from renewable energy. Please welcome the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, Right Honourable Ed Miliband.
It's great to have two introductions, not just one. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, can I start by welcoming you all to the Mansion House and to London Climate Action Week. I want to thank the organisers of London Climate Action Week, who've done an amazing job. E3G, the Global Renewables Alliance, and the We Mean Business Coalition, who are all co-hosting this summit with us today. Put your hands together, please, for their incredible organisation to make this happen. There's one other word of thanks I want to say. Secretary General, we are incredibly honoured by your presence with us today. And we are not just honoured by your presence, we are incredibly inspired by the amazing leadership you have shown on climate and energy over the last 9 years. You are a true visionary, you are compelling, and you are our most powerful advocate. So please put your hands together for the Secretary General, everybody. So look, I have 3 or 4 simple messages that I want to say in this opening. My first message is have confidence. Have confidence about this agenda. What I've found so exciting about London Climate Action Week so far is that every country and every business brings their own success story and indeed ambition about what clean power and electrification can offer. Here in the UK today, we've chosen today to announce that we've passed the incredibly significant milestone of over £100 billion of private investment in clean energy since our government came to office less than 2 years ago. This didn't happen by accident. It happened because we had a clear mission. We had a mission which was a partnership with business. We knew this was going to be a massive driver of economic growth. We knew this is where the jobs could come from, jobs in every part, the length and breadth of Britain. And I want to thank all of the UK businesses and indeed international businesses for being our partners in this task. And what we are seeing in Britain is part of a global clean energy boom that the IEA projects will drive a record 2.2 trillion of investment this year. So that's the first point. Have confidence about this mission as a driver of growth and indeed of energy security, as I'll come on to. Because my second message is this. After the war in Iran, less than 5 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, 2 fossil fuel crises in less than 5 years, we in this room, and policymakers more generally, have an incredible duty to learn the right lessons for our countries. In Britain, since the Iran war began, we've seen families, businesses, and the public finances exposed to the impacts of events beyond our borders again. And we know it is the most vulnerable across the world who continue to face the greatest impacts, particularly in the global south, where this is not just an energy crisis, but threatens a food security crisis and profound challenges for development. And let's just say this plainly. When Russia invaded Ukraine, some told us to ignore one fossil fuel shock and return to business as usual. And now, facing this second shock, just 4 years on, we hear the same arguments. Those who are saying this are wrong. They would leave our countries vulnerable. You know, I often cite this fact that half of the recessions that have happened since the 1970s in the UK have been caused by fossil fuel shocks. But what is different this time with this fossil fuel shock is that clean electrification gives us a clear alternative. An alternative that cannot be disrupted by foreign wars, that isn't subject to global shocks because it is locked in stable prices at home, and that can create good jobs and drive growth. As I said, an alternative that can deliver national security, energy security, and indeed climate security. So we have to learn the right lessons. My third point is this, and I think this shouldn't be controversial. I believe in multilateralism. I believe in global cooperation. I believe every country of the world benefits from that cooperation. And there is a particular reason why this is true in relation to the drive for electrification. Because while the fossil fuel age was defined by the competition for scarce resources, and indeed a zero-sum game, the clean electricity age can be defined by the potential for abundance, because of the resources that we use, and the fact that by working together and supporting each other, we can all benefit. By learning from each other, by building supply chains, and bringing down costs as we deploy renewables, as has happened over the last 2 decades. And as we meet in the City of London, global solidarity, and I want to say this very clearly, means mobilizing the global financial system to get public finance, private finance, the MDBs, philanthropists and others to help drive electrification in the global south. And today we're announcing as a UK government new work with Tanzania, Brazil and Morocco through the Global Clean Power Alliance. My final point is this. We care about future generations. We know that we will be judged on the legacy we leave. And the weather in London this week, believe me, when I was a child, it wasn't 35 degrees in London in June. What we are seeing, not just in Britain, but around the world, impels us to act. But we are not just doing the right thing for future generations. We are in the better lives business today. And this is so important for us to emphasize. We are in the better lives business because we're for energy security, for lower bills, for higher living standards, for good jobs and growth. And what inspires me is all of you. Because in all our countries, there are people who care about this agenda and rely on us to act, and I see them all in this room. Thank you so much.
So the people who say it can't be done should get out of the way of the people who are doing it. Thank you, Secretary of State, for doing it. The next speaker inspires the world with his unrelenting leadership on climate. During his tenure, the world faced not one, but 2 major energy crises. At moments when many argued for a return to business as usual, he made the case for a better path. Thank you for your leadership, your persistence, and unwavering voice. I was there this morning, Your Excellency, throughout the defining challenges of our time. Please welcome on stage His Excellency, the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres.
Dear friends, it's an honor to be here among committed climate leaders and activists. This summit takes on urgent tasks at an urgent moment, advancing the energy transition at speed and scale and with justice, and building a new global economy for all, powered by clean, affordable electricity. Earlier today, I spoke about two interconnected crises. Crisis number one, accelerating climate chaos, pushing us beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature limit and towards dangerous, irreversible tipping points. And crisis number two, the most severe energy upheaval in years, pushing up prices, straining economies, and fueling inflation. These two crises share one common cause: fossil fuels. And yet fossil fuels still account for around 80% of global energy use. And 3/4 of people live in countries dependent on imported fossil fuels, energy they do not control, at prices they cannot predict. We must turn the page, and we have an historic opportunity to do so through clean electrification powered by renewables. Renewables are now the cheapest, fastest, and most scalable source of new electricity in most of the world. Last year, over 90% of new renewable power projects delivered clean electricity at a lower cost than fossil fuels. Wind and solar are now leading all new electricity demand growth worldwide. When I became Secretary General, less than 1 in 100 cars sold worldwide were electric. Today is 1 in 3. Clean energy investment is now double that of fossil fuels, and global investment in battery storage is expected to exceed $100 billion in 2026. The evidence is clear: the clean energy era has begun. But it's not moving fast enough, and many developing countries are being left behind. To supercharge a truly global clean energy transition, we must act on 3 fronts. First, build 21st century energy systems. Without modern, resilient, and interconnected grids and storage, the transition will stall. Across the world, projects are ready, but stuck waiting to connect to transmission and distribution networks. The International Energy Agency tells us that by 2040, the world will need to add or refurbish more than 80 million kilometers of grids. That is equivalent to rebuilding the entire global grid network. It requires annual global investment in grids and flexibility to reach at least $670 billion by 2030, US dollars, more than 1.5 times current levels. Governments, MDBs, and the private sector must invest in grids and storage, a strategic infrastructure, and strengthen the backbone of a clean energy future. This is how we unlock the full promise of renewables and build energy systems that are clean, secure, and fit for purpose. Second, we must mobilize finance at scale. Developing countries rich in renewable potential are starved from investment. Look no further than Africa, home to 60% of the world's best solar resources, but nearly 600 million people without electricity. And the continent receives just 2% of global clean energy investment. In the last decade, only 1 in every 5 clean energy dollars went to emerging and developing countries outside China. These countries represent 2/3 of the world population. To deliver on global net zero emissions by 2050, annual clean energy investment in those countries must rise more than 5-fold and reach $2 trillion by 2035. That demands bold national policies and concrete international action to reform the global financial architecture. Credit rating agencies and investors must modernize the way they calculate risk. And we need innovative financial solutions that reduce genuine risk, however, lower the cost of capital and crowd in private investment. And we need to drastically increase the lending capacity of multilateral development banks, making them bigger, bolder, and better able to leverage massive amounts of private finance at reasonable cost. Which brings me to my final point: strengthening international cooperation. And here I'm totally in line with Ed Miliband. We need new models of cooperation that break barriers and accelerate delivery. That cooperation must also extend to trade. Fragmentation and protectionism will only slow progress, deepen inequalities, and prolong dependence on fossil fuels. The clean energy transition will move faster if countries work together to build open, resilient, and diversified supply chains. The transition must deliver for all, creating opportunity, dignity, and sustainable development. We need a boost in support for low-income countries that are struggling to make a shift. The UN will do its part, supporting developing countries to build modern, resilient, and interconnected grids. And the UN Task Force on Critical Energy Transition Minerals is working with resource-rich developing countries to embed justice and equity across the mineral value chains. This must be an opportunity to reject old models of resource exploitation and replace them with high value-added processing and manufacturing in countries endowed with these resources. No more extraction without development. Dear friends, the age of clean electrification is here. The question is whether we can build the grids and storage, mobilize the investment, and deliver the infrastructure at the speed and scale required. Let us seize this moment for energy security, economic stability, and a livable future for all. Thank you for doing your part.
The age of clean electrification powered by renewables. I could not have said it better myself. Now to one of the strongest leaders on the front lines of the climate reality. Some countries talk about independence. Palau is building it. Once powered almost entirely by imported diesel, Palau is now charting a course towards 100% renewable power. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency the President of Palau and also the Chair of the Alliance of Small Island States, Sunjel Whips, Jr.
Thank you, Nick. The E3G team, the UK government, and most importantly, for the honor and opportunity to be here before you today. You know, I have to tell you that this London Climate Week, not only is it hot, but it really caught me by surprise. The sheer scale, the vibrant energy, and above all, the profound feeling of optimism in these rooms is infectious. It reminds me that we can get this done, and we must get it done. But if we are being honest, when we look at the world's headlines today, it feels like we're living in a perpetual state of global crisis. We are limping from one interlocked emergency to another. Geopolitical shocks, energy insecurity, and closer to home for all our citizens, the fast escalating cost of living. It is hard to ignore a sense of dread looking up at the thick gray clouds early this morning as this great city prepares for one of the hottest weeks, perhaps the hottest in recorded history. I feel like I'm at home. Ladies and gentlemen, let us not mince words. The climate crisis is not coming, it is already here. For us in the Pacific, it isn't a headline. It is our daily reality. We are on the absolute front line. Warming seas, ocean acidification, and relentless extreme weather are already eroding our island economies, our food systems, and our cultural identity. The ocean is our lifeblood, and protecting it requires rapid, unapologetic decarbonization of the global economy. At the dead center of that effort is an overhaul of our global energy system. Prime ministers and global leaders are dominant in the news this week. As I reminded an audience earlier this morning, It was your very own former UK Prime Minister, Sir Winston Churchill, who famously said, "One should never let a good crisis go to waste." The recent fossil fuel crisis has laid bare a painful truth. Our continued dependence on carbon-based energy produces a deep, paralyzing vulnerability. Fossil fuels do not deliver the certainty, the stability, the cooperative prosperity, or the planetary balance that we are all striving for. On the contrary, our addiction to them is driving the very crises that are overwhelming us today. To be absolutely clear, the 1.5 temperature guardrail at the heart of the Paris Agreement is under severe threat. It must be protected, and it must be stretched. It must not be stretched. I said that. As my good friend, the UN Secretary General, reminded us this morning, the transition away from fossil fuels is no longer just necessary, it is irreversible. Technological advancement and the pure, hard economics have made it so. But irreversible is not enough if it is too slow. It must be fast enough to keep 1.5 alive. That is why Palau fully supports Brazil's leadership in developing the roadmap on the transition away from fossil fuels, TAF. Alongside the Santa Marta process, which we are proud to welcome to the Pacific next year. For the TAF roadmap to be real, I have called for it to include three indispensable T's. It must have targets, timelines, and trajectories. All of these must be guided by the best science and modeling. We need clear milestones, transparent reporting, and national delivery mechanisms. We need real fossil fuel phase-out, not an exercise in creative accounting. At the same time, we must tackle this from the demand side. Accelerated progress on electrification is a powerful weapon in our arsenal, and Palau proudly supports the launch of Electrify now. We will work hand in hand with our global colleagues to amplify its impact all the way to COP31. Last month in Port Moresby, Pacific energy ministers united around a bold, shared vision to achieve 100% renewable energy future for the Blue Pacific. We want to be the first region in the world to do it. And let me tell you why this is just plain common sense. Let's look at the math. It makes absolutely no sense that a region like the Blue Pacific, which could largely decarbonize its entire energy architecture with 20 to 40 billion in total investment, spends now 6 to 9 billion every single year on imported fossil fuels. At the current crisis, that bill could easily exceed 10 billion. We are talking about a full investment payback in just 3 years. Imagine that. After 3 years, all future diesel purchasing can be reoriented where it belongs, in education, in healthcare, in new clean industries, and creating sustainable jobs for our people. Embracing this new energy future is critical to achieving national security, reducing vulnerability to external shocks, and advancing development. And honestly, the words apply equally to just about every region and country represented in this room today. For us, 100% renewable energy is not a slick marketing slogan. It is the beating heart of our economic strategy. This September, Palau will host the 55th Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting. And I'm hoping the UN Secretary General will join us there to advance initiatives that I know are close to his heart. We want to welcome you at our Leaders Ascent dialogue on climate-smart investment. This will be the fire, the starter's gun on a critical series of stepping stones running from Palau to the pre-COP in Fiji and Tuvalu and straight on to COP31. At this dialogue, we aren't just going to talk, we are going to deliver. We will launch the Pacific Renewable Energy Investment Prospectus to provide immediate visibility to the best investment-ready projects in our region. We will task a new Pacific Renewable Energy Commission to cut through the red tape and expedite deployment. And we will forge a new partners group, a powerful blend of public and private financiers, multilateral development banks, and philanthropy to bring these projects to life. But the final piece of this puzzle is finance. The Pacific energy transition will stall without fit-for-purpose investment that is fast, predictable, and accessible. Palau urges our global partners to unlock concessional capital, to de-risk private investment, and to back regional transition platforms. The Pacific needs financing models that recognize our smaller scale, our intense vulnerability, our high cost of capital, not reconfigured frameworks built for large economies. With the right financial fit, we will continue to fight from the front line, combining moral leadership with a get-things-done attitude that can serve as an exemplar to the world. We welcome you this week's focus on practical delivery and collective momentum heading to the UNGA COP31 and UK G20 presidency. Come to the Pacific Island Forum in Palau in September. Join us on this journey because it is the exact same journey we foresee and require for the entire world. Sulang, I thank you.
So much. Where islands lead, others will follow. So now we're going to go into 4 back-to-back panel sessions. But before we do, I'd just like to test the optimism in the room. I like to do this whenever I meet an audience. So I'd like you to put your hands up. And the question is, are you more or less optimistic about the energy transition than you were 1 year ago? So we'll first start with, are you less optimistic? There are a few hands, and I'll be seeing you afterwards. Who is more optimistic? And that is against the backdrop of disinformation, geopolitical tension, and the energy crisis. Thank you for your optimism. We're going to dive straight into I understand the Secretary General has to leave for a commitment. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to dive, please. So the first session will explore the transition away from fossil fuels, a conversation that we could not have had even just 5 years ago. To lead this panel, the Associate Director at E3G, Matt Webb.
There we go. Thank you, Bruce. So welcome to this very important segment, progress on the transition away from fossil fuels. So just wanted to ask my esteemed panelists to come up onto the stage. So Irina Vélez Torres, Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development of Colombia. Stensje van den Helden, Minister of Climate Policy and Green Growth from the Netherlands. Sebastian Ordonez Munez, Civil Society Representative on the Santa Marta process. And of course, Anna Tony, COP30 Presidency CEO. So this is an important session. As part of our collective efforts to reach our climate goals and achieve our shared resilience and prosperity, it is essential that we bring together work to clean up our electricity system and also electrify our power system to transition away from fossil fuels. So we wanted to bring both of these moments together today. As you all know, there was a significant amount of dialogue and energy last year running into and during the Belém COP about the need for roadmaps to end our dependence on volatile fossil fuels in a just and orderly manner. This culminated in the Brazilian COP30 Presidency roadmap, and also at COP, more than 80 countries expressing their willingness to accelerate the transition. This year, at a time of great global energy crisis, we saw further positive outcomes with the first conference on transitioning from fossil fuels in Santa Marta, led by Colombia and the Netherlands. So this segment marks an important moment of interaction between these processes as Colombia and Netherlands share the outcomes of their conference and hand these to the Brazilian COP30 presidency. I would also suggest that we need to reflect the UNSG's call for action this morning and how we can think about using the leaders' dialogue in September that was referenced in his speech. As you know, E3G has been very happy to host a number of alliances who work in the action agenda, so it's very special for us to do this segment here. And I'd like just to say that we have representatives from the Power and Pass Coal Alliance who have an important new briefing out today, which I would recommend is really worth a read. And also we have colleagues from the Beyond Oil and Gas Alliance who are also making further announcements about how they're going to support producer countries in their transition. So I know many of you will want to look up their announcements today. But without further ado, because we are sort of on time, which is marvellous, I would like to invite Minister Torres and Minister van Veldhoven to speak with their opening remarks.
Dear colleagues and friends, today we have the honor to formally deliver the report of the first conference on the transitioning away from fossil fuels to the presidencies of COP30 and COP31 that was supposed to be here. Starting this session, this conversation, we were told that the energy model needed not only a new chapter, but a new book. And let me introduce you the book. The report we are delivering today is not just the outcome of the conference. It is the evidence of a new global conversation on climate action that has already begun. Yesterday night at the dinner gala, we heard about the need for strong new coalitions for sustainability. And I am pleased to announce that Santa Marta proved to be precisely that. The beginning of a new alliance of the willing, a new alliance of the doers. I believe the greatest achievement of our conference was its unprecedented capacity to build bridges among four fundamental divides. First, between the participation of the Global South and the Global North. Second, between the participation of fossil fuel producing countries and fossil fuel consuming countries. Third, the participation of governments and civil societies engaged on equal footing. And fourth, everything we did around science to be the base of public decision making. Together, these four axes became the cardinal points of a new global climate democracy, one that recognizes historical responsibilities, values diverse voices, and places knowledge at the center. The just energy transition now is part of the heart of diplomacy. And just energy transition is what we should be all encouraged about in what we do in the everyday life. Allow me to use this occasion, perhaps one of the last opportunities to talk in the representation of the Minister of Environment of Colombia. As you know, our government is transitioning in a month. To talk a little bit more about what I learned from Santa Marta and what I think Santa Marta is telling us about the current moment we are living. Transitioning away from fossil fuels is not only an energy agenda. It is an economic transformation that is needed, and it is the energy security discussion that we have to address. Breaking fossil fuel locks-in, particularly for countries in the global south, requires reshaping the economic structures and incentives that continue to sustain extractive industries. Let me be clear. The energy transition has never been merely a technological challenge. Above all, it is a matter of inequality, rooted in historical power relations of exploitation, extraction, and domination. As we speak about decarbonization, we face El Niño, not only with the fear of it being one of the most severe in the last centuries, but also with the reality that many countries from the global south won't have the fiscal space to deal with it, to prevent the worst impacts, to recover from the devastation that we know is going to generate. The transition then will never be just if the most vulnerable countries are forced to choose between paying their debt and substituting the contaminating sources of energy, paying their debt or electrifying rural areas, paying their debt or transitioning away from fossil fuels and extractivist economies. In order to achieve transition, and despite the frustration generated by endless negotiations and insufficient national pledges, multilateralism is today more necessary than ever. But it must evolve. This is a historical moment for new forms of cooperation. First, coalitions without veto. Second, decolonial alliances capable of controlling and reversing historical inequalities and recognizing diverse pathways to well-being. And third, and above all, coalitions that can transcend the limits of the national state, the governments. Coalitions where peoples are embracing the transition. Coalitions where parliamentarians are participants of the political agendas, where subnational governments can challenge the national limitations that some countries and governments are imposing to transitioning away from fossil fuels, where indigenous authorities, social movements, popular organizations, peasants can participate, decide, and act. I call this an open and participatory approach, a multi-scalar environmental democracy. And I believe this is the only democracy capable of sustaining climate action beyond electoral cycles and political shifts. I talk here from experience. If tomorrow a country like Colombia, being as ambitious as it has been, is then deciding a different political path, one that gives the back to the Amazonian, one that denies climate science, one that is embracing the drill baby drill politics. If that is the scenario we are facing, only a multi-scalar environmental democracy will be able to challenge that reality. Because no election, no government, and not political step back can reverse a movement that is rooted in the defense of life. As my colleague Estincia taught me in Santa Marta, we need the results of the conference to be in all of us, every time, everywhere, and I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Torres. Very powerful words about the need for new cooperation between North and South for the economic transformation. So I'll hand quickly on to Minister Van Velden. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And as Irene has already so eloquently described the outcomes of the Santa Marta Conference, I'll just share a few personal remarks and then I'll share with you a little bit about the follow-up. Because Santa Marta was a moment, but it has to become a process. And we've been working very hard to do that, and I'd love to elaborate a little bit on that. But first of all, Irene, thank you so much. You said it might be the last time you speak about this, but I know in your heart and in some place you will continue to fight for this because it's your personal agenda, and I've been able to witness that from very close. So thank you very, very much for everything. So, Santa Marta for me, I must say, it felt a bit like it felt here when we all raised our hands to say we are more optimists. It felt electrifying. And why was it electrifying? Because we came together with the spirit that we want to create the change. And Miliband kind of said, I trust that we can. The SID said, we can get this done. I would say, we will get this done. Because the solution is the better solution. And because there are so many advantages, and we only have to look back at the Strait of Hormuz closing to know why it is the better solution for so many different reasons. And that is why we will get it done. But we need to work very hard to make sure that we get it at the speed which is needed. And therefore, it's very good that we're all here together. And that is why we need to come together more often with those coalitions of the willing. That is what we started at Santa Marta, and that conversation has to continue. It has to continue by creating transparency. That's the first work stream of Santa Marta, and the work has been kicked off. We have to work on that by supporting countries in their national transition plans. And thank you also to BOGA and the NDC partnership for taking that role and making also resources available to support countries that want to embark on that endeavor. Because let's be honest, it's very difficult for all of us. None of us know how to do that yet. For all of us, these fossil fuel incomes, incentives are so deeply entwined in our economy, we need to look at it. It's hard for all of us. We need that support. We all need to work on it. We need to find ways out of our fiscal traps, our debt traps, our subsidy traps, without making the poor people in all of our societies pay the burden of that. And we have to look at the opportunities of creating green trade markets where we can change demand, we can also change supply, because ultimately it's changing demand. Destroying demand for fossil fuels, which will change the supply. And we're working on all of that, and of course we couldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't in very, very close collaboration with the COP presidencies. And Anna Tony, thank you also for your exemplary leadership, for bringing us a roadmap. And for that, I'd like to, next to the Secretary General who had the first one, I'd like to present you with the second report of the conference. Looking forward for great collaboration with you in the future. And please, this is an open coalition. If you want to join us, join us. Be there at the next conference, which will be with two great co-chairs of Tuvalu and Ireland. And in the meantime, if you have questions about the Santa Marta process, about the conference, please come and join us, because the door is very open to anyone who wants to create change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Van Velden, for those very inspiring and powerful words, which I could see resonating around the room. I've been told to speak up and to speak into the microphone, and I'm going to just pass the message on to others on the panel, just in case, to make sure we can all hear at the back. With that reminder, I'm going to ask Sebastián Munoz to come and take the microphone.
In Santa Marta, the mountains of the Sierra Nevada meet the Caribbean Sea. As the descendants of the Tairona people tell us, the Kogi, the Ika, the Wiwa, the Canquamo, it is a place that reminds us that every river, every forest, and every territory is connected to something larger than itself. Perhaps that's why Santa Marta became such an important place for this conversation. But Santa Marta did not begin in Santa Marta. It began in territories defending land, water, culture, and life. It was carried forward through the People's Summit process that emerged in Belém, and it was shaped by indigenous peoples, Afro-descendant communities, workers, peasants, women, youth, faith communities, and climate justice movements from across the world. I stand here today as one voice from that much broader process. This report is a major achievement of the Santa Marta Conference. Yet what gives it its greatest strength is the process behind it, the relationships, the trust, the shared learning, and collective ambition that made this possible. As a Colombian, I speak at a moment of uncertainty for my country, and at a moment of uncertainty for many societies across the world. We are witnessing the rise of reactionary political projects that seek to deepen division, undermine democratic institutions, and turn people against the very idea of climate solidarity. But Santa Marta offered a different vision, another vision. It reminded us that the transition away from fossil fuels is not a technical challenge. It is a political one. The real questions it raised were who pays, who benefits, who decides? How do we end a system in which wealth continues to flow from south to north while climate impacts flow in the opposite direction? How do we ensure that this transition does not reproduce the same logic of extraction and sacrifice zones, but under a different name? That Santa Marta vision recognized that a transition away from fossil fuels must be just, equitable, and democratic. That means addressing debt burdens, investment regimes, and financial structures that continue to lock countries into fossil fuel dependence. It means strengthening international cooperation, advancing the UNFCCC's Just Transition Work Programme, launching the Belém and Thalia Mechanism for Global Just Transitions, and building momentum for initiatives such as the Fossil Fuel Treaty. Santa Marta was also a reminder that political leadership matters. This process was possible because communities defending their lands, their territories, made it impossible to ignore, and because a government chose to listen. In an age of fragmentation, Santa Marta showed that internationalism remains one of our most powerful tools for building a future beyond fossil fuels. A world beyond fossil fuels is possible. Our task is now to build the political will, the public investment, and the international solidarity needed to make it irreversible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. And again, just bringing some of the flavor and some of the energy from the diversity of the Santa Marta discussions into this room. So thank you so much. And I think very apt that you ended talking about political leadership, and we are now perhaps coming full circle back to Anatoni and the initiatives through your presidency, which really created such momentum on the idea of roadmaps and transitioning away from fossil fuels. So very apt to hand over to you, Anatoni.
Hello, good afternoon. What a pleasure to be here. What an energy. And I think when I look at what happened in Santa Marta, what happened in Belém, and what's happening here now, the same energy. Now, same tension as well, and definitely as hot in the three countries that we were. Very hot, but I would say, as I said in the other meeting, the ice cream in Belém was better. So, much better. But this is a really wonderful moment because I think, again, we are doing history in every of those meetings, in each of the processes. It took us 28 COPs to talk about transitioning away from fossil fuel. And if we just look at in 7 months since COP30, how much has happened? We started in Belém with President Lula bringing at the summit that we need to transitioning away from fossil fuel. We needed to do the roadmap because we cannot be as dependent on fossil fuel as we are now. This war that's happening now, it shows that we cannot, not only because of climate, but because of energy security, because of social security, because of security, because of economic security, we needed to transitioning away. The leadership that Colombia and the Netherlands showed during the Belém to call for a meeting in Santa Marta to be the first meeting for us to get the coalition of the willing, the like-minded countries that wanted to go that path, to come together so fast. And the energy, I was there. It was just absolutely incredible. And it wasn't a meeting about against. It was a meeting about constructing the ways forward. And it's with the same spirit that at COP30, the president of COP30, André Correa do Lago, announced that we were going to do a roadmap. Is that platform so that everybody understands really clearly to plan the way around on transitioning away is a must. It cannot be a taboo to talk about that. And I think Santa Marta, Belém was very tense about that, but it's no longer a taboo. We discussed that in Bonn. We are discussing that here. We will discuss everywhere because it's a must for us to do so. And we are hoping that the roadmap that the COP30 Presidency is doing, and I wanted to thank everybody that's joining us that, we got 267 contributions from the collaboration that all of you sent, 115 countries. We also having technical help from organizations like ARENA and many others helping us on doing that. It shows that the world wants and needs to talk about that. And this contribution that we just got today is a really special one. It's the one that will pave the way for our roadmap. So I take it, that contribution with my heart really open, because I'm sure there are lots of things here that you will see back again in our roadmap, showing the way for us to move this together. What the roadmap is not. So the roadmap that we are doing as COP30 is not a mandated roadmap. As you could see, we did not get into consensus in Belém. So it's not mandated, it's not a negotiated text. That will be COP30's contribution to this platform to continue looking how we can implement. It's no longer a question of if, it's a question of how. So we wanted to contribute to that roadmap showing the different ways that we can do. And we are going to look at some principles that are guiding our work. First, there is not one way fits all. We will need to look where countries are from different perspectives, from consumption perspective, from supply perspective, and from the economic perspective. Very much what Santa Marta also did. We are going to be guided by science, and at the moment, to protecting science is absolutely fundamental, as we just heard from Bonn. We know how important it will be for all of us to protect science. And we wanted to see that in this road to do the transitioning away from fossil fuel, there is a space for everybody to contribute. So all countries, all coalitions, private sector, civil society, indigenous and local people, everybody needs to be with us. So I'm very much looking forward to read in detail the report. I'm very much looking forward to go to the second meeting that is going to happen in Tuvalu together with Ireland. And I hope that you also going to read the roadmap when it comes out that we're going to be launching before Antalya. We're also going to deliver to COP31 and to the rest of the world. And we hope that our contribution also reflect where we are, and let us make sure that in every meeting, every climate week, we will be discussing transitioning away from fossil fuel. So thank you very much for your leadership. It has been a pleasure. And as Stinchen said, we were going to be together in so many places. Doesn't matter which hat we have. So it's absolutely everywhere we're going to be together. So thank you, Arina. Thank you, Stinchen. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anatoni. And I think that's the last word, isn't it? We have to continue this work all the time, everywhere. Clean up, electrify, phase out fossil, and phase in clean renewable energy. So thank you so much for bringing that passion and leadership to the panel and inspiring us all for our sort of collective efforts as part of this conference. And I'll just invite the audience to give you a further round of appreciation and applause. Thank you.
Thank you, dear ministers, Anatoni, Sebastian, for your bravery, persistence, and leadership in showing us the roadmap, the transition away from fossil fuels. So as UN Secretary General said this morning, we're at the dawn of a new energy era. The age of renewable electrification is here. The next session will introduce a new initiative for accelerating clean electrification. It's going to be moderated by the chair of the Global Renewables Alliance and the co-founder. Please welcome Ben Backwell.
I'll speak into the microphone. Your Excellencies, friends, colleagues, it's such an enormous pleasure and privilege to be here in this great community. I feel I've heard so much today and learned so much from such eloquent and passionate speakers. I mean, it's really been, I think, one of the best days of my life, I think, so far since we started GRA. So I'm immensely proud, and thank you, Bruce, for Nick, Maria. It's been a great partnership, and the UK government as well, and the Secretary of State was here. And it's not often you get to hear from the UN Secretary General, the Secretary of State, the COP CEO, Minister Irene. Thank you for your passionate words around Santa Marta and all the great speakers. But it gets even better. So we've had a great day, and it's going to get even better. And I think I got the fun part of the day, which is to help launch this Electrify Now campaign that I'm extremely excited about. It was in the Financial Times this morning. You will have all seen it. It's not true that it's costs the same as the IEA's annual budget, as somebody said earlier. It's not quite that much, but we're very, very proud of it, and it marks an important moment for us. 3 years ago, many of us in this room were in Dubai at COP28, when we launched the tripling target, a tripling of renewables and doubling of energy efficiency. Many of the actors in this room were really fundamental in making that happen and building the coalition that adopted that. 3 years later, now the focus shifts to electrification. Renewables has grown, continues to grow at an accelerated pace. We're not quite at the tripling, on the tripling trajectory, but we're getting closer to it every year as investment rises. But we now need to move to the use of that electricity, and also to make sure that we have the grids and the enabling environments to make sure that electrification can take place. I come here actually almost straight from Southeast Asia, where I spent the last 2 weeks. And Southeast Asia for me was almost a kind of microcosm of what we're facing right now. Extremely hot, fast-growing economies, economies that are still dominated by fossil fuels in terms of their energy mix, but also places that are electrifying very, very fast. I was in Hanoi last week, and it looks like 1 in every 2 cars now is an electric vehicle. 2 or 3 years when I went there, it wasn't like that at all. We're seeing 150% year-on-year growth of electric vehicles in Malaysia, in Vietnam, in many places, and in many places in Southeast Asia, electrification rates are now higher than in the European Union, which has led on this subject. So it's happening, and the private sector is investing at a faster and faster rate. But there's many challenges we need to face collectively to make things go even faster, not least making sure that we have coordinated investment in infrastructure, but also making sure that we have social and political support for this acceleration, and we can deal with the growing threat of political polarization and disinformation and other things. This community that's coming together now around electrification is really inspiring. We've seen just in the last few weeks just a series of such important announcements in Bonn, in Brussels, in other places around the world around electrification. So it's a really exciting moment. And I'm very, very lucky to introduce 3 of the real prime movers behind this. So first of all, Francesca La Camera, Director General of IRENA, please come up. Dan Jurgensen, European Union Commissioner for Energy and Housing, one of the prime movers behind the renewables and electrification pushes. Please come up to the stage. Yes, I know. And Dr. Chang Hoon Lee, Chair of the Presidential Commission on Climate Change, you're over there. I was looking for you earlier. Thank you. Please come up. I scatter my papers. I'm going to turn without further ado, first of all, to Dan Jurgensen, who's going to speak. Dan, please come and tell us how you're looking at the campaign and tell us about the campaign.
Thank you so much, Ben. So I was reminded when Secretary Miliband spoke earlier and said that when he was young, it didn't used to be this warm in London. So can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I was reminded when Secretary Miliband spoke earlier that when he said that when he was young, it didn't used to be this warm in London. That when I was young, very young, 19, I used to work here in London for a year carrying suitcases. And the way we knew it was summer was when the rain became a little bit warmer. And if we changed color, it wasn't a tan, it was rust. But that has certainly changed, unfortunately not for the right reasons, but because of climate change. And it should serve as a reminder to all of us that even though climate change is not as high on the political agenda as it's been before, and even though even the ones of us who work with it every day tend to use arguments of security and competitiveness probably more often than fighting climate change right now, the essence of what we do, the real reason why we need to do this, the crisis that will not go away, is climate change. So, friends, 4 months ago, and almost 5,500 kilometers away, the Strait of Hormuz closed. Through that narrow passage flows roughly 1/5 of the world's oil and 1/5 of the liquefied natural gas. The consequences have hit us all in energy bills, grounded flights, and factory slowdowns. These consequences are not just the result of bad luck. They are the price of fossil fuel dependency. And yet, at the same moment, something extraordinary happened. Earlier this year, wind and solar generated more electricity than gas at a global level for the first time in history. Renewables have now overtaken coal as the world's largest source of electricity generation. Electrification is jumping up the corporate agenda. Greater security and lower costs are driving a major push for businesses to electrify their energy supplies. Across the world, we're seeing a new movement to overhaul power systems from the ground up. What we need now is the political will to match this momentum and to meet the scale of the challenge. And that means speaking and acting with one voice. This is precisely why we've come here today to launch Electrify Now, a new platform for global coordination on electrification. This is a joint initiative of the European Commission, the United Kingdom, alongside Turkey and Australia, Ethiopia, Canada, and Barbados. We have the IEA and IRENA on board, along with a growing coalition of governments and industry. I'm particularly happy to count on the support of international financial institutions and multilateral development banks. You are indispensable. The distance between a political commitment and a commissioned power plant is measured in finance. You are the ones who can make the difference to close the distance, especially in the emerging economies where the need is greatest and the barriers are highest. So, dear friends, at COP28, we proved that the international community could align behind tripling renewables and doubling energy efficiency. That coalition changed what was politically possible. Electrify Now is building on the same logic. It will be a global platform to put clean electrification at the top of the international agenda. This is not only a climate ask. It is also an energy security imperative, a competitiveness strategy, and an economic opportunity. We are a coalition of industry, investors, financial institutions, and government. We represent countries from across the globe, big and small, north and south. But there's room for many more. I therefore urge you all to join us and take part in this platform. To every government, every company, every financial institution here today, please join us in driving the electrification agenda forward. And I thank Palau and Germany and others that have decided to sign up today. Thank you. Together, yes. Together, let's raise our ambitions, let's multiply our actions, and deliver the full benefits of electrification for all of our people across the world. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Dan for once again stepping up and showing such leadership. Dan, thanks very much for being with us today. Really appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to turn now to Francesca La Camera, Director General of IRENA and one of the architects for the tripling and now of the electrification platform. Francesca.
Dear Excellencies, dear all, a great pleasure to be with you today, and thanks for having IRENA with you. For the past decade, renewables have transformed how electricity is generated. The next decade must transform how energy is consumed. For years, our collective efforts have rightly focused on scaling up renewable energy generation. Today, however, the conversation is evolving. The age of electricity is no longer a future scenario. It is becoming today's economic reality. The next phase of the energy transition will not be defined by how much renewable electricity we generate, but by how much of our economies we electrify. This is precisely one of the central messages of IRENA's latest report. You know, thanks from the visionary leadership of Ambassador Delago, we have been requested to provide the analytical technical background for the initiative on transition from fossil fuels. We have discussed this in Santa Marta, do you remember, when I say that the first result of your work was that we are going to present in Denmark our work on transition from fossil fuel. As many of you know, we chose Denmark and Copenhagen because it was the place where we present our analytical work on the triple. So that it was a good wish to have the same place to present our work, hopefully inspiring the result of COP31. An IRENA roadmap explicitly proposed a global target of 35% by 2035, supported by grid development and targeted investment to remain on a pathway consistent with climate and development objectives. Just to be clear, is not setting new targets, but say what should be done in action to keep alive the 1.5 Celsius goal of the Paris Agreement. And I don't think that I have to repeat what has been said by everyone today, starting from the UN Secretary General. Our renewables today is the most competitive way to produce electricity. Our firm renewables, that means renewables plus storage, are more competitive than any other option if there is enough solar and wind in place. But there are something that I want to be clear, two messages if I can. Our 35% electrification target is to be achieved through renewables. In our report, there is no mention of other technologies. Sometimes we listen to someone talk about nuclear. Nuclear, in our analysis, is not an option. It's becoming late. There is no nuclear that may come before 2035. It's too expensive. Just to show how they are trying to disinform us. You have your phone in front of you. Please take your phone in front of you and make this digit. Make Darlington small nuclear reactor dimensions. And what appears that this pilot plant occupy 1 from 2 football fields. Is high 30 meters, 18 meters down the earth, and the other up to the earth. How can dare to call them small nuclear reactor? It's kind of a campaign to disinform us. Today, the only option that we have to electrify economically and socially acceptable way is through renewables. My last comment, and I will end up, there is a table that perhaps is there, but here is how we'll evolve the roadmap through 2050, 35% 2035, more than 50% by 2050. And what you will find in our report is how this goal is to be, how this action is to be diversified by sector. My last thought is this one. We are trying as ARENA to present as much as possible, not anymore renewables as a climate solution, because we know that. We can be blind not to recognize that. We cannot say that is the most reasonable way to deal with social aspects and other, because it creates more jobs than fossil fuels and others, 3 times more. So there is no competition. But there is one aspect that we have to understand, that feeding economies, the competitiveness of our economies in the years to come will be largely determined by the molecule and the electrons that the energy system may provide for at lowest cost possible. This is the game of competitiveness. We cannot stop competitiveness, create barriers. I've seen today in working with Alessandra, trying to find this place, that our building our dreams, the Chinese car is there, also in our London. So we cannot stop the competitiveness. What I'm saying, if we want to save our economy and make it a competitiveness be winning by us, we have to go for renewables. And the way that we have been launching this event, this campaign here, is because of you. Because you are the ops. We know how difficult. I've been working in the government. I know how much difficult it is. But in a historic moment where we still think that war may prevail on dialogue to solve a contentious item, if sometime we prefer to close eyes in front of genocide in front of us, you are the hope to building a new economy that is clean and is for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesco. Okay, I'm going to pass quickly on now to Dr. Hoon Lee from Korea. Korea really a country on the front lines, both of electrification and the oil and gas crisis. Dr. Lee.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the organizers, including UK government, for successfully hosting London Climate Action Week. I also wanted to extend my thanks to the European Union and all our partners for launching the Electrify Now initiative. Distinguished guests, today we must tackle three monumental challenges at the same time: energy security, industrial competitiveness, and climate crisis. And one of the most proven solutions to these challenges is electrification. The Republic of Korea is actively pursuing decarbonization and electrification as the core strategies of energy transition. We are expanding clean power and accelerating electrification across our industrial, transport, and building sectors. We are also building a safer, more flexible power system by expanding advanced grids and energy storage systems. We believe that electrification is more than just a response to climate change. It is a key driver that strengthens energy security, powers economic growth, and sharpens the competitive edge of our future industries. With this shared value, Korea welcomes the launch of Electrify Now initiative. We are fully committed to actively participating in these international community efforts. Moving forward, I look forward to government, international organizations, and industry leaders working hand in hand for more sustainable and prosperous age of electrification. Thank you.
Great. Well, as we said, the private sector stands ready to support governments in this effort for electrification. We're going to hear from some of the companies and from Maria soon. But before I do that, I want to show a video from one of the people really missing from today, who's the Right Honourable Chris Bowen, who's been so important in this whole process. So let's show the video, please, and then we will move on to the next session. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, thank you for the opportunity to deliver the closing remarks virtually alongside my very good friend, Minister Karum. The Australian Federal Parliament is in session this week, so I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I look forward to speaking with many of you soon and to receiving a full debrief from my team on return. I thank very much the UK government partners for convening us as we navigate the largest energy shock the world has ever seen. The solution to this challenge is not to drift, but to strengthen the bonds that hold us together. To work together more closely to safeguard multilateralism and to accelerate the global energy transition. We are only now 42 months from 2030. We have no time to waste. Our collective energy security lies in a cleaner future and electrification. Clean energy and electrification builds resilience against future shocks and ensures reliable, sovereign and affordable energy. I'm pleased we have launched the Electrify Now campaign, and along with colleagues from Turkey, Ethiopia, the UK and Europe, we agree we want to see this group grow. Electrification has different emphases in different regions, but the one constant of electrification is progress. Progress on energy security and economic development, progress on access and affordability, progress on climate action, progress from EVs in Vietnam to electric cooking in Nepal, heat pumps in Helsinki. Electrification is delivering lower costs and other great benefits to communities. I very much welcome Turkey's efforts to pursue ambitious outcomes on electrification through the COP31 Action Agenda. The Action Agenda gives us wind in our sails on a few issues, including increasing focus on energy efficiency and electrification, In my role leading negotiations, I remain mindful that decisions are taken with consensus by parties. I look forward to continuing my conversation with many of you, carrying out the momentum to pre-COP in the Pacific and COP31 in Antalya. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A short advert break. The Electrify Now website is live. Type in Electrify Now to your search engine of choice. You will find it. We heard from the governments, and thank you so much for your leadership, Francesco, and the other governments who stood leading the charge, excuse the pun, on electrification. We're now going to hear from businesses. We as GRA represent the supply side, but crucially, this is about the demand side. And I'm delighted to introduce Maria Mendeluthi, who's the CEO of We Mean Business Coalition, a very strong partner of GRA in electrification. Thank you, Maria. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me invite the speakers and let's put a bit of power in the room. I'm going to ask you a few questions, so you have to listen to me carefully. But before that, Jérôme, from CEO of Arup, Eva, the head of sustainability from Siemens, and Gonzalo, my dear friend Gonzalo, the global head of partnerships at Iberdrola, and I'm going to be sitting with them. Hello. Yeah. You might have seen in the press that the Women Business Coalition, together with GRA, we did a survey, and E3G. We asked 2,000 executives, what did they think about the future of the energy system? 90% said that it's going to be electric, that they will electrify their operations by 2035. 91% said that actually they see that electrification is a way for them to increase their energy security. And they also see that this will be a source of competitive advantage in the future, because in the future their cost will be lower. Because as you know, clean electricity, renewable energy has very low operational cost. We're not yet there, because 72% of them said that actually the governments are not scaling as fast as it needed in terms of policy. And I'm very pleased that Stinja is here and other policymakers. And here's where I'm going to ask the audience. So we asked, we did a statement and we asked businesses what were the main policy barriers, but I'm sure you would agree with many of them. So I'm going to ask you to raise your hand, okay, if you agree with this one. The first one is strategic planning. Who would you agree that this is a major enabler for electrification? Raise your hand. So sorry, this is the most important one, okay? Because now it's not only about the supply, it's also about the demand, okay? And we need to bring them in a synchronized way. But we will hear afterwards from Jérôme. The second one, investment in grids. Can you raise your hand? Again, please wake up. This is key. No one say, everybody says, we need to invest in grids, right? Yeah, because sometimes production and consumption are not in the same place and we need to transport the electricity. Third one, upfront cost. Come on. Yes, upfront cost is a big issue, especially for households. Not for the ones here that have a lot of money, but those that are in the homes. And if, yeah, anyway, just move to an electric vehicle, heat pump, etc., is not that cheap. But it is very cheap once you have it, once you have made that investment. Fourth one, taxation, incentives, energy incentives. Can you raise your hand? This is huge, you know. I mean, these governments are subsidizing fossil fuels, like big time, when they should be helping with the upfront cost for the most vulnerable, if we want to make this a just transition. And then the last one, I love this one, and I'm quoting someone, I heard this yesterday. Policy volatility. Who thinks that this is a big barrier? Yeah, all of you raise your hand, we have seen it. Okay, so let me move to the panelists. Jérôme, tell us about why planning, strategic planning is so important.
Thank you so much. Many of you will know Arup. and you'll know we work across buildings, cities, infrastructure, the whole of every industrial sector. I think it's fair to say that everything we do depends on electricity, and where we see growth supercharged, it depends on electricity. I'm personally an urban planner. I'm not an engineer. When I look at the importance of this agenda, I put growth, competitiveness, and then I start going below those titles into the jobs that are created through the competitiveness supercharged by electrification. You go beneath that, and you see money being created in people's pockets, addressing a lot of the cost of living issues that we are challenged politically by in every country of the world at the moment. So I think it's fair to say that the electrification agenda is very much the heart of the future of successful cities and at the heart of competitiveness of successful society. Everywhere I work at the moment, in every nation across the world, I would say by and large there is a commitment to getting the policy agenda right. And that's supercharged by a recognition of whether it's competitiveness, security agendas, or the response to climate change. Governments are realizing that transition to renewables puts them in a stronger position. But everywhere I go, the same issues also apply. The policies may be there, but the delivery is really kind of mixed. Delivery ebbs and flows with crises. We saw an urgency created by the war in Ukraine. We saw a huge amount of investment flow into renewables. We're now seeing the same thing with the crisis in Iran. But in between times, we actually see things slowing. So I think we've got to get out of this cycle of crises and get into a more stable future planning of consistent delivery of the networks, the systems that will deliver the transition that we're all here to commit to. And I think it's a rare thing that you'll see a leader of business stand up and say, I support the centralized approach to planning systems, and whether that be electricity systems on their own, or from my point of view, the importance of dual planning of electricity, water, and data systems as critical infrastructure fueling the success not just of nations, but more often than not, unions of nations going forward. So for me, the critical agenda and the reason that Arup is keen to join this summit, but this movement, is to argue for the integrated approach to planning on a system-wide basis, critical infrastructure across the public and private sectors together, committing together to a common plan, identifying through that plan the pipeline of investment required, delivering certainty to the business community so that it can invest in the jobs and the skills that are going to be required to deliver it, and ultimately the certainty that the public require to hear that will translate into the opportunities that are often promised by politicians advocating for the transition. Delivery is the key to that, and I think public-private partnership through this kind of agenda is critical. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is one of the policy recommendations that was included in the business statement that we launched yesterday, with 110 companies signing. Half of those companies come from the demand side. So there are companies that are looking to electrify, but they see that there are these policy barriers that are on their way. That's it, their commitment is there. So let's move to Siemens, because there is no one, like Siemens to understand where are those bottlenecks. And especially when it comes to grids, permitting, this is something that over and over I hear from businesses that there is a lot of frustration. Can you tell us more, Eva?
Yes, absolutely. So at Siemens, we're passionate about grids. And we talked about many different important things throughout the last hour, and one of them is also affordability. So the question is, how do we get out more of the grids we already have? And technology is the answer. And we know that because more than 70% of global electricity runs through grids that use Siemens products. Now, when we make them smart with software and AI, and yes, AI is the solution for many of our infrastructure problems, we can get up to 20 to 30% more load onto the same grids. We can reduce the outage duration by 40%, and we also can reduce the peak times. But we don't stop there, because we are in buildings, mobility, electrification, and in industry. So when we talk about electrification, the grid is really what connects everything. As we electrify mobility, electrify industry, and electrify buildings, it actually means we have the solar on the top and the heat pumps in the ground, and we have the battery storages. Now think of this vision. Today we have automated buildings. They will move to autonomous buildings, as the grids will move to autonomous grids. As we connect this infrastructure, we actually start having a building as an energy node in a larger system. So when we're thinking about the future, and since we're sitting here on the European continent, the future of Europe as well, we need to think across all aspects of societal infrastructure, and the vision we have, and that is one to work towards, and the return on invest will be huge, because the infrastructure we all want to live in by 2050 should be decarbonized, fully circular, and modern, productive, but also protecting the people in it. So that's why it starts with grid and electrification, but it really goes far beyond that.
Thank you, Eva. And one of the things that it's a little bit of a mystery is how come clean electricity production has reduced its costs dramatically, but yet consumers pay, high electricity bills. And no one better than Gonzalo to explain us why. Where are the incentives right and where are they wrong, and how can we make clean electricity affordable?
Okay, thank you very much, Maria, and it's a real pleasure to be here this afternoon. Yes, my thesis this afternoon is that relative pricing between electricity and gas is one of the key issues to accelerate electrification. Why? Because after the technological revolution we have seen from renewables, batteries, heat pumps, today electricity competes with gas for the same services. So you can have a heat pump or a gas boiler. You can have an electricity oven or a gas oven for ceramic, for instance, in Spain. So what's the problem? The problem is that historically, governments used the electricity as a fiscal collection tool, because this was a demand that was inelastic. And as a result, electricity today carries far higher taxes than gas. For instance, in Europe, electricity taxation can be between 5 and 10 times higher than gas taxation, whether you are heating water for a shower or running an industrial process. So what is the paradox? Is that even though electricity end users are between 3 or 4 times more efficient than fossil fuel counterparts, electrification is not moving at the necessary speed because it's burdened with fiscal charges that disincentivize its use. So what's the solution? The solution is to remove charges and taxes from electricity so it can compete fairly with natural gas and accelerate electrification. And more broadly, we need to align fiscal policies so that they work in favor of electrification and not against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gonzalo. There's some support. There's some support. So at our Electric Advantage program at Women Business, we're looking at what are these policy barriers. And we are really hesitating, should we go into the data center debate or not? Because we want to electrify energy uses, but at the same time, there is a huge demand of electricity from data centers. So I would like to hear from the panel, because there is a way to do this in a smart way, so that it drives benefits to the system. So who wants to comment on this? It is the elephant in the room, so I had to bring it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Shall I go first? Well, certainly here at Arup, in my company, we are very focused on designing the most energy efficient, water efficient data centers that we can. And we're engaged in a huge amount of work at the moment in forward-looking research in the way in which we can use new chips, etc., to really drive that agenda. But management of demand is not the only answer. Data centers at the moment, the biggest challenge to data centers actually is a social one, more than anything else. Not just the using of the electricity off the grid, but the acceptance of a data center in a local community where it doesn't necessarily directly provide the jobs and amenities. So what we're looking at is the bringing together of data center investment together with other opportunities to drive growth and economic output. So for example, we have a fantastic scheme in Spain at the moment. We're working with the clothing industry to use the hot water extracted from a nearby data center to use in the production of clothing, if you like, generates cold water at the end of that cycle, which is refed back into the data center. So closed loop type systems like that actually create opportunity for growth, and I think preserve the efficiency, if you like, of the energy draw and the water draw through the data center itself.
Mm-hmm. Eva, you want to comment?
So we're using AI to actually make data centers a lot more energy efficient, and we're also doing that for the water usage. Nonetheless, data centers are a burden. They're generating heat, they're using land, they're using water, and they're using a lot of energy. But here as well, and we keep facing the same boundary conditions. It is the security, and that also includes the data security of various countries. So Europe needs to build out data centers. There's no way around it. So here we come back to, we need to be very smart about these things. We need to think them in systems. We need to look across Europe. Where is the best location in Europe for a data center, not in a country? Once we start optimizing each and every country for its own energy system, its own data center, we're losing out on the competitive advantage that is Europe. So there is definitely a way forward. Technology is the key here. We have the technology. We also have it in Europe. And we just have to be very smart and bring people like us in one room and connect this puzzle to find the way.
And I suppose channel their financial means to also support the transformation of the grid, etc. Gonzalo?
Okay, for me data centers is a growing industry. But I will say, of course, it uses energy, land, water, less water, because we are moving forward. And for instance, in Spain, new data centers are not using water. But for me, it's like any other industry. So I was in the speech of this morning of the Secretary General, and he asked for transparency. I think this is very important. But we need transparency for all industries. And that's the important thing. It doesn't, for me, it's not a very different industry. We need transparency from industries so that governments and policymakers can make good, smart decisions regarding the development of this industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we are over time. Thank you very much, dear panelists. Thank you for the audience that you are staying here. Now you have a Women Leading on Climate that is coming on stage, that I think Bruce come. And then thank you so much. Bye.
So you've seen the businesses. I've been reliably informed that the website is electrifynow.world, in case you were looking. But also to note that in addition to the businesses, our campaign includes over 40 organizations from the private sector, but also NGOs. Check it out on our website. but also case studies, policy recommendations, and details how to accelerate clean electrification. This is the last session, so between, no pressure, Catherine, between here and drinks is a discussion on how to accelerate and move faster towards clean electrification. To lead the discussion, the former Canadian Minister of Environment and Climate Change, she is a relentless advocate for climate action, renewable energy, and getting things done. If you've not read her book, do so. Please welcome the inspirational Catherine McKenna. Come on, thank you.
All right. So I feel like this is a lot of pressure because I'm standing between you and drinks, and I'm not just Canadian, I'm Irish, so that actually means something. So this is the last session, and it's going to be jazzy, and it's going to be fast. And so really, it's the big questions. We're at the moment where the energy transition isn't just a climate imperative, it's an economic imperative, it's an energy security imperative, it's a competitiveness imperative. It's also an amazing opportunity for people to save money if we frame it properly. So comms matters. Tell everyone you will save money if you get a heat pump, if we actually install solar, if we do these awesome things. But the problem is the geopolitics is tough. And so the question isn't whether we're going to transition. It is the pace and scale, and that's all I think about is fast and big. So we have a conversation with leaders from government, multilateral finance, industry, and infrastructure to focus on 3 practical questions. 1, how do we accelerate electrification? 2, how do we continue and accelerate the transition away from fossil fuels? And 3, how do we unlock the finance needed to make both possible? So we have a number of speakers that are going to come up, and they're going to be very quick and jazzy. We have Jose Luis Samaniego, the Deputy Minister of Sustainable Development and Circular Economy from Mexico. Welcome to the stage. Valerie Levkov, the Vice President for Infrastructure with the World Bank Group. Thank you. Terrier Gabadgian. I did a terrible job there. The CEO from Climate Investment Funds. Thank you. We can work on it together afterwards. And then Vanessa Butani, the head of global sustainability from Volvo Cars. Come on up, Vanessa. Okay, to make this interactive, we've got a question. It's a little bit like, you know, you could have either answer, but anyway, it's a test. It's a test. What is the primary driver of the energy transition today? And you're going to do a show of hands. So climate action or energy security. And you can't vote for both, even though you might want to. Okay, number 1, climate action. Oh, everyone's like got with the program, I guess. Energy security. Oh, good job. Yay. Okay, it can also be for our kids. Like, we can also do that too. Okay, so we're going to do these questions, and once again, just a reminder, we're between everyone and drinks. So to the Deputy Minister from Mexico, and to sorry, I'm messing this up. Oh, no, that's right. So the Deputy Minister of Mexico, and also to Vanessa Butani from Volvo. Electrification is the engine of the transition, but grids are creaking, finances are tight, and the politics is hard. What is the single biggest electrification policy or investment you're making right now, and why that over everything else? Go for it.
Okay, well, probably the first reason is that it's now more affordable than before. So now it's economically viable. But the second and very strong reason is for security reasons. And not only because Hormuz, the strait, was closed, because we depend too much from the Texas gas. We import 75%. So any fluctuation, any political rift with the US or with Texas can paralyze the country. So we need to become independent from natural gas. And the way to do it is to rely much more on the renewables that Mexico is richly endowed with. Wind, solar, and so on. So what we're doing is using all the fiscal money we have, all the budgetary power, to decarbonize the electricity system. And we're doing progress. We have capped the extraction and refining from Pemex. We will go up to 38% renewables by 2030, not 35. But a big barrier is that the main consumer of fossil fuels is still the automobile sector. And that is still growing, and there's no sign either from the European or the American companies, or the Japanese companies, except Toyota perhaps, that they're going to do a change in production to produce affordable for middle-class consumers of electric cars. Big roadblock.
That's interesting, because then we hear from the business community, 9 out of 10 of them want to electrify their operations and clean them up. So we need to see that momentum and working with governments, because it is critically important. Okay, Vanessa, same question over to you.
So as a legacy OEM, we've been around for 99 years now, 100 years next year. I mean, the single biggest thing we can do is continue to show that this can be done, right? We are investing in electrifying our whole fleet. We are continuing to make those investments to show that it's worth it to set up the infrastructure, to make everything work so that people can have electric vehicles. So we've just started the production of our latest model at our Torslanda plant in Sweden. We are about to open up our fully electric vehicle factory in Slovakia, which is a 1.2 billion euro investment that we're making there. And all of this to show that this is the way that it's going. And we know once consumers drive an electric vehicle, and perhaps you have yourself, 98% of them say they would not go back to an internal combustion engine. So this is the way things are going, and this is where the growth is in the market. So we can continue to do that, but what we really need, and the message I really want to send here, is from policy, right? To make sure that we have stable policy. We have a 2035 ICE ban for the EU. We have the ZEV mandate both for 2030 and for 2035 in the UK. And those are being challenged right now because there has not been enough investment to make sure that we get ourselves there. If we're going to continue to invest, continue to have this stability that we need, that's exactly what we need, right? So that we can be resilient, so that we can move to the electric vehicle, which will help then also to reduce our impact on the environment, where transport counts for 25% of global emissions.
So we do have a few, I can actually now, I feel like everyone's been so good that, and we don't have the Minister for Indonesia, so we can continue this conversation a little bit more. So, Deputy Minister, so it's hard being in government. As I say, hard things are hard, so you can't get around it and you have to get things done. So to provide the policy environment that Vanessa's talking about, I mean, how challenging is it? And what do we need, because I hear this often, that business wants certainty, they want the policy there. In your country, and maybe when you talk to your colleagues, I mean, how tough is it to get the policy that is needed?
Well, we've been trying to push for the policy we need, talking again about transportation, but the transport sector is very well organized. We have two lobbies, one of light-duty vehicles and another one for heavy-duty vehicles, and they have been able to stall the regulation to make stricter the standard of greenhouse gas emission of new vehicles. Right now, we are in this battle with the lobby to try and finally push the regulation that will lower dramatically the emissions. And by the way, Canada is part of the model of how they did it, how they reduced the multipliers for electric vehicles and so on. So we are basing our example much more on the Canadian example than the American example that has left completely the arena and has relaxed EPA regulations. That's one field. The second one is we have been stabilizing and sending very strong messages in terms of policy to the country and particularly to the private sector by defining percentages of participation for the private sector in the renewable energy sector. We are demanding that every project that is presented has at least 3 hours of storage on renewables, 100% renewables private sector. And we have advanced in regulation to allow biofuels, geothermal energy to come into the picture, and soon products from recycling plastics that are very similar to gasoline and diesel.
That's great to hear everything you're doing. So maybe to you, Vanessa, when I was in government, there's like always the lobby that wants to do less or nothing or go back in time. So how do we get this ambition from, we need business to step up and actually be there so that we actually have the ambitious business at the table. So when you are trying to develop the policies, as we hear Mexico's trying to do, by the way, hang out with Canada on the auto side. We can skip over since the U.S. has abandoned all their policies. But I mean, how can businesses, high ambition businesses, really help? Because sometimes it feels pretty quiet out there, and you just hear from people who are against what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's a point that I've been hearing so far this week all the time, is we want to hear from you. We want to hear from the examples where it is working, because I think it is really those of us who have made the investments or doing it, we kind of put our head down and keep going. Whereas the ones who haven't, they're the ones writing the letters, making the phone calls and saying this doesn't work, this doesn't work. So I think we need to come together and really show that this does work. We need to get consumers on side too, right? Showing that demand is there from the consumers. And again, I come back to the growth is in the electric vehicle market. Frankly, for us as Volvo Cars, we're not growing right now. But if you look a little bit under the surface, the electric vehicles are growing for us, which is great. But we've got to do our part also to take away those barriers, right? Which is what we're doing. Making the range better, making the charging time faster, and making the experience better than driving an internal combustion engine. But getting to the point, I think, is also about having that discussion, facing the issue, and what is it that is stopping us from getting to where it is. And again, that's where we need to partner together across the ecosystem, of course, with government, but also the other companies who really can enable this transition to happen.
So that's good. So now you can all go, you can go in a corner. Actually, we'll get like the business who sometimes sit over there and the governments who sit over there and get them together, because I think it is absolutely critical. It'll help get better policy, but you'll be able to actually deliver on it. So now let's turn to finance, because we know that we need finance. We do not have enough money out there. Actually, there's tons of money out there. There's tons of money in the world. It's just not always going to the right place. And so we have Thierry from CIF and Valérie. So we know that what adequate finance would require, and we know the system isn't delivering. So what is your biggest priority when it comes to trying to transition finance today? And what is your organization doing to bring it within reach?
So we are in a challenging time, and we see today and for all day long that electricity is the first need. For us, it's about job creation. Without electricity, you cannot develop, you cannot create job, and we need to give hope to the youth of the emerging countries. So for us, it's a first priority, setting the proper foundation for electricity development. So it comes with scale, partnership, and private sector, if I take three. So being at scale is very important, because we cannot do what we were doing before. Scale, so project by project. So coming to a programmatic approach is a very important, and that's one of the shifts we have been doing. And with Kevin here in the room from African Development Bank, we have been partner in crime by starting the Mission 300 initiative, which is to connect 300 million people to electricity by 2030. And it has been this programmatic approach that we have been pushing the government to work with us. And we have now more than 30 countries in sub-Saharan Africa which have been, committing to their national energy compact to deliver with us this programmatic approach, which is a holistic one, which is not just one project or one issue. It's all the issues. So it's the last mile, it's the grid, it's the power generation, it's the market, regional market creation,
So all overall. Second is partnership, because we, as a World Bank Group, even if we are the World Bank Group, we could not achieve that alone. So we are doing that as partners with the African Development Bank, with the government, with the civil society, with Rockefeller or Sustainable Energy for All. In the World Bank Group, we have put in place a co-financing platform. Why a co-financing platform? Is to say to all the other DFIs, we have a project, please come with us. And what is great is that this co-financing platform is now utilized even for projects where the World Bank Group is not financing, between two other DFIs. So partnership is a key solution. So programmatic, with a long-term vision and planification, partnership. And the last is private sector. Today, emerging markets receive $280 billion for energy, where we need $330 billion a year. That cannot be done by multilaterals. That cannot be done by governments. There is no fiscal space. There is no budget to do that. So for that, we need the private sector. And our role is to de-risk the private sector, to come with all the enablers that has been just presented the previous roundtable, and to give the de-risking tool. And what we have done in the World Bank Group is we have changed our organization. So under the same umbrella, I am the Vice President for Infrastructure, which drives the sector for the bank side, public sector, the IFC side, the private sector, and MIGA, which is a guarantee. So because we need to align all the tools to come with a full set of the solution to de-risk the private sector. So that's what we are doing today.
I like it, the 3 Ps: program, partnerships, and private sector. That's good. So everyone here, you've heard it, so now get on it. So now, Thierry, the climate investment funds, you do great work, and so what do you see what do you focus on to actually get this capital that we need going?
Actually, it's a perfect segue from Valerie's point about private capital mobilization. And while CIF is a multilateral climate fund, we have $14 billion of concessional catalytic capital, which we invest alongside 6 MDBs. The World Bank Group is one of them. The AFDB, with Kevin here, is another. And we invest across emerging markets and developing economies. And our capital is that de-risking concessional capital with the objective to unlock additional funding. Now, over the last 10 to 15 years, our capital was used to support the multilateral development banking system and the entire financial architecture to take the first investments in solar, wind, and those advanced technologies of the time. But now, with most of those technologies proven, the challenge is scale and getting more of the funding into emerging markets and developing economies to take up their share from that 15% we're seeing into tripling that participation. And to achieve that, we must apply public funding in more precise ways to unlock and to de-risk. And so recently the CIF launched a new modality with its sole objective to work with the multilateral development banks to take high-risk positions with the specific objective of de-risking private capital, institutional capital to fund renewable energy as well as the energy system transformation. Now this is important because the MDBs are equally making those shifts in their business models as Valerie described, because all of us need to move from the private capital mobilization ratios which we had historically. This was broadly, could be 1-to-1 in some cases, 1-to-4 in best cases, and now we're going to be pushing those numbers to 1-to-10, 1-to-12. This is the goal, this is the task. In an environment with declining aid budgets, every dollar, pound, or local currency equivalent of concessional grant capital must go to unlocking 10 times that. And you have to do that by using guarantees. First loss, equity, first loss equity. That network of instruments is going to be key. But let's also speak to what private capital needs. They need stability, they need systems, and they need reliability that they can make long-term investments. And what we've found is when we invest in a country-led process that's programmatic, This is one where an emerging market determines that they need to transform their transmission system. And we bring together investments in policy, in technical assistance, in regulatory reform to enable dispatch, etc., as well as integrated assets. It could be transmission, storage, and a road network to enable it. All of that needs to come together to deliver that energy solution. And so we invest in that programmatic way with supporting countries, but there's a challenge with that. Countries designing for public, but designing to integrate the private sector. And that's also going to require a system shift, which we have our contributions to, but we can all work collectively to also resolve.
So that's great. The good news is, look, we have all the players here. We need governments, then we need business, and we need the finance piece, and MDBs and World Bank Group to be pushing. But I'm going to end. So the good news is we're going to try to end on time. That's always my goal in life. So we're going to do the super speed round. Because everyone here needs optimism, right? And we're leaving here, we're going for drinks, we want to be optimistic. So what gives you optimism? It can be anything in this space. So we'll just go down here. I know I put you on the spot because I didn't even tell you I was going to ask this question.
I think the clear message and the actual very stable message from everybody in this room is that this is the way we're going, right? And I'm excited to be able to contribute to that as well.
Well, in my case, it's because we are doing it already, trying hard. We are seeing a lot of company, so eventually this will synergize all over the world.
What gives me confidence, and it may be strange, is this Middle East crisis has demonstrated that the countries which have started to put the regulations in place and started their energy transition are the most resilient. So each show and open the case for all the others.
I'm excited about industry decarbonization and what we've seen recently when we launched $1 billion industry decarbonization program, and we had 7 of the countries in emerging markets with hard to abate sectors rally toward delivering investment plans within 12 months. We recently endorsed Brazil and Mexico, $500 million, $5 billion of co-financing. Countries are fired up, and so should we.
Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Bruce is like giving me the fingers up. Oh no, he's saying go on. Oh, you're noting it down. That's good. You're actually, I like to see that we're taking notes here. Okay, I think we are done though, Bruce, unless you would like us to continue. Oh, I've got the screen telling me what to do, but okay, but I now finished on my high note. No, I don't want to finish on the low note. What are the bad news? I don't know. Now you've really put me on the spot. Okay. Now Bruce is like, forget it.
What are
Bruce
you
is now
optimistic
done.
about, Catherine?
What am I optimistic about? I mean, look, I'm just a realist. So I just think it's so obvious, the business case now. And it always comes down, I mean, it has to come down to the business case. Of course I care about acting on climate because it's the right thing to do. It's morally right. I have 3 children, which is why I do get up every morning and do this. But I think now it's just obvious that we actually, when I was negotiating the Paris Agreement with many folks here, we knew sort of what the solutions were, but not at scale and cost. That is just the truth. The flip side to that, we knew that the climate crisis was a crisis, but we didn't know how bad it was going to be. And just look at how quickly the temperatures have risen. I think we've probably broken a record today. So the risks are so high, the impacts are so bad, but the flip side is we have the solutions. So let's just get on with it. So that's what gives me hope, that it's no longer, feeling like you're moralizing or you're trying to, make whatever case. I actually am agnostic why people want to work on why we want to tackle climate. I don't care why you want to do it, if it's a religious reason or it's to make a bunch of money or to innovate or, whatever it is. But I think we now have a very clear business case, but we have to, my view, is that we have to be out there making it. Because there are entrenched interests every day who are very loud and who are very well funded, who would like to tell us it's more expensive. They'll tell it it's too hard, that we just have to keep on doing what we're doing. Well, that's not really working, and people know it, and people do care. And I guess maybe I'll leave on the 80% of people who are not in this room, nowhere near this room, they care. We know that. Globally, around the world, people care about climate. It may not be the top issue they vote on, but they get really worried, especially because they worry about their communities and future generations. So I think, look, we just have to be practical, but we have to be out there, and we have to be very clear that this is not just happening, it's accelerating. This is the right thing to do for business, it's the right thing to do for our kids, and we're all just going to move on. And I want to take a second to thank everyone who put this on. So we have the Global Renewables Alliance, we have E3G, We Mean Business Coalition, and we have the UK government, because I think these discussions are really, really important, and also kind of keeping it real. So with that, I am now handing it over. I am now done. I'm getting a drink soon, but thank you. And thank you to our great panelists.
Thank you, Catherine, for that note of optimism as we leave the room. It leaves me to thank the organizers. Catherine's just done that. But also a shout out to the lady who's leading the Electrify Now campaign, who didn't get to be on the stage, Anna Freeman from EEC. Thank you for your leadership. A last thank you. Unbelievably, we've finished exactly on time, given the number of speakers. So a huge thank you to the moderators and speakers for keeping to time and providing so much great content. Thank you. And I can't leave without giving my one takeaway from the event. The electric train, powered by renewables, is leaving the station. Let's get on board. Enjoy the drinks. Thank you for coming.